episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I'm your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Munchkin Marvel, the latest iteration of Munchkin from Steve Jackson Games. This just came out a few days ago. I grabbed it and played it, and I'm going to let you know what I think. But first of all, Munchkin is a card game. I think of it as a light-hearted dungeon crawl type of card game because you're kicking open doors and fighting monsters and looking for treasure. And there's over a dozen different versions of Munchkin. The first one is very much fantasy-based. There's dragons and goblins and all these different typical like Dungeons and Dragons type creatures that you're fighting. But there's I have this is my fifth version of it. I have Munchkin Cthulhu, Munchkin Apocalypse, Munchkin Pathfinder, Munchkin Zombie. There's a Conan version, a vampire version, science fiction, western, steampunk, just all sorts of different versions. So if you like games but not necessarily a fan of Dungeons and Dragons types things, but you like vampires, you can pick up that version. There's all sorts of, and they're all compatible. But real quick, before I get into the actual review of this version, I'm going to go over what Munchkin is and how you play it. Now, in this version, and I think this is the only specific thing I'll get into for my overview, in this version you have character cards. Right there, there's a female side and a male side. And the object of the game is to be the first player to level 10. So it has your 10 levels there, and they give you these nice little tokens to keep track. And you get every version of Munchkin has a custom die. It's got the shield symbol for the 1. Everything else is just pips on there. Excuse me. But in Munchkin, you have 2 decks of cards. You have door cards, and you have loot or treasure cards. So at the beginning of the game, everybody's going to get a character, and you deal out 4 cards from each deck to each player. So you're going to have 8 cards in your hand. Now these cards, there's all sorts of different types of cards. I'll get into what they are later, but some you'll be able to play immediately. So you're going to put those down in front of you, put them into play. And then whoever's going first will start. And the first thing you do is kick open the door, which means you flip over the top card of the door deck. I've stacked these decks. So we flip over the first card, and it's a monster. It's a level 1 monster, the lizard. And he's got some special instructions here. When he enters combat, if the top card of the door discards is a monster, he gets +3 and its combat abilities. So he's got a special thing there. But he's just a level 1. That's his strength. Now to beat him, you need a strength that's higher than his. Now your strength is going to be whatever your level is, plus any modifiers you get from gear, from powers, from allies, from all sorts of different cards. So you add all that together. If it's higher than 1, or if you follow the special instructions, you'd get +3 and whatever else. You know, so say he gets the +3, if it's higher than 4, you would beat him. When you beat a monster, you go up a level, and you get however many treasures. This says 1 treasure. So you get 1 treasure for defeating him. Some monsters let you go up 2 levels. Some monsters give you 2 treasures, 3 treasures, 4 treasures. Obviously, those are going to be tougher monsters to beat. But so you've kicked open the door. You found this monster. You defeated him. You'd move on to the next step. But before we get to that, say you kick open the door and you flip over this card. Ah, it's a trap. This hits you automatically. Age of Ultron here says, roll the die and discard that many cards from your hand. Simple enough. So you do that. Now, if you've kicked open the door and you get a trap or any other type of card except a monster, Then you can either look for trouble or loot the room. If you encounter a monster, you're not going to do these things. But if you have a trap or if you get some other card that's just going to go into your hand, after that you can look for trouble, which means you can play a monster from your hand and fight that. Or you can loot the room, which means you just take the top card of the door deck and put it into your hand. If it's a monster, you can hold on to it for later when you might want to look for trouble on another turn. If it's a trap, you can play that on other players sometime during the game. And then there are some other cards, such as affiliations. In this game, you have the Avengers, the Inhumans, and Spider Friends. You can have one affiliation. There's a card that allows you to have two, but they just give you some special powers. In this particular case, the Avengers, you may have an additional ally. Allies are a type of card that I'll get to, and generally you can only have one at any given time, but there are cards such as this that will allow you to have more. Plus, you get a +2 bonus when in combat with monsters of level 10 or higher. So that's an affiliation card. Then you might get a power card, and oh, one of my favorite Marvel characters, up easily top 5, is Taskmaster. And this says you may discard, you get a +2 bonus, you see that at the top here, and then at the bottom it says you may discard a monster card for an extra +2. Now these power cards, see where it says rank 2? You can have as many power cards as possible, but their total ranks cannot be higher than your level. They have to be equal or lower to your level. So if you're rank 1, you can't play this. Rank 2 or higher, or excuse me, if you're level 1, you can't play this. If you're level 2 or higher, you can. If you're level 6, you could have 3 power cards that are all rank 2, or a rank 2 and a rank 3. You know it. You can do the math. So that's just another type of card that's in the door deck. So these are things that might go into your hand. So you've kicked open the door. You're either going to fight a monster, or, you know, if this is the card that comes up when you kick open the door, it just goes in your hand. Then you can look for trouble or loot the room. Then the last thing you're going to do after you've done all that is called basically the charity step. You're only allowed to have 5 cards in your hand at the end of your turn. Any other time you can have as many cards as you can hold. But at the end of your turn, you can only have 5 cards. So you have to give any excess cards to the player of the lowest level. If there are players tied for the lowest level, you just divide your cards equally amongst them. And if there is no one of a lower level than you, I think it is, you just discard any excess cards. Now, there are a lot of cards that you can play at different times during the game. So if you have more than 5 cards in your hand, and some of them you can put down in front of you because they're equipment or something, you want to do that first. And now I'm going to get into the equipment. So these are some of the other cards. These are your loot or treasure cards. First of all, you have your items, is actually what they're called. I said equipment, but they're items. And you have headgear, armor, footgear, and hand items. And there are single hand items and double handed items. So this is an armor. Shows you that right here. +5 bonus. That's not bad. So that's going to be added to your combat strength whenever you fight monsters. Excuse me. Generally, you can only have 1 headgear, 1 armor, 1 footgear at a time. You can have 2 single-handed items, but only 1 double-handed item. And again, there are cards that may change this. So you have items, then you have allies, such as Iron Man here. I kind of went with a theme when I stacked this deck. So Iron Man here gives you a +2 bonus for combat, an extra +2 if you're a female, and that's your character, not yourself necessarily. And it says armor you are wearing is worth an extra +2. So just these two cards, if I'm a male, are going to give me 9. If I'm a female, are going to give me 11 to my combat. So that's pretty good. Then you have one-shot cards. And it says right on here, play during any combat, usable only once. A +5 bonus to either side. A big part of Munchkin is messing with the other players. So it's someone else's turn. They're about to defeat a monster. You can slap this down, give 5 more to the monster's strength, and maybe stop your opponent from being able to defeat that monster. Or if you're fighting a monster and don't have quite enough strength, slap that down and you can defeat the monster, hopefully. Then you've got cards like this, go up a level. Play at any time. You go up a level. It's that simple. So those are just some of the cards. Now, I did say the object of the game is to be the first to level 10. And generally, the only way you can win at level 10 is by killing a monster. You can't play a go up a level card to get to level 10 and win. I think there are maybe 1 or 2 cards that allow an exception to that. But generally, you have to kill a monster to do it. So that's very generally what Munchkin is. And there's a lot of messing with other people, as I said. You can play traps on them pretty much at any time. You can use that one-shot card to give extra strength to the monster. There are cards called Wandering Monster cards that allow you to play another monster during combat. So it looks like your opponent's going to beat a monster. Throw another one at them. Or conversely, if the monster you're fighting is incredible, like say it's a level 1 monster, you're at level 6, you got all sorts of items and stuff that are helping you, and powers and allies, and you want to do more than just defeat a level 1 monster, play a Wandering Monster card on yourself and add another monster to your combat. Just make sure you're strong enough to defeat both monsters. Now, if you can't defeat a monster, if you look here, there's bad stuff. So if you can't beat the monster, first you want to try to run away. You roll the die. On a 5 or 6, you've successfully run away. There are some items and other cards that will modify that roll, make it a little easier to run away. If you fail at running away, then this bad stuff happens. In this particular case, this is for the lizard. His genetic experiments cause you to change gender, and you have -5 in your next combat. So that's where this comes in. I started out as a male character, but the lizard beat me, and now I'm a female character, and in my next combat, I get -5. Some bad stuff causes you to lose cards. Some bad stuff can cause you to lose levels, and some bad stuff can even kill you. If you die, you're not out of the game. You just lose, I think, all the cards in your hand and all your items. I think you get to keep other stuff. And then on your next turn, you draw 8 more cards, 4 door cards, 4 loot cards, and basically you start fresh. I don't think you lose your levels either. So that's a very quick sort of general overview of Munchkin itself. And each version might add some different things. And I know in some versions there are big items. You can only carry one of those at a time. And as far as your items and things go, you can carry any number of items, which means if I have 10 item cards, I can have them all out on the table in front of me. But you can only equip 1 headgear, 1 footgear, 1 armor, 1 two-handed, item or 2 one-handed items. So I might have 3 armor items, but I can only equip and use one at a time. Now you can change what you have equipped pretty much any time except during combat. It actually says here that, yeah, anytime as long as you're not in combat, you can change that. So, say your affiliation changes. I was an Avenger, and so I had some armor equipped that gave me a bonus for being an Avenger, but then my affiliation changes. I become an Inhuman, and I happen to have an item, some armor that gives me a bonus for being an Inhuman, so I'll change what I have equipped to get that extra bonus now that my affiliation has changed. All sorts of things going on here. So, as I said, that's a big general overview of Munchkin itself, but I'm talking about Munchkin Marvel. And I'll tell you what, this is already my favorite version of Munchkin. I am biased. I'm a huge fan of Marvel. But I think this one, it seemed, maybe it's just me, it felt a little more streamlined than some of the other versions. And as much as I like the lightheartedness of some of the other versions, this has some of the absolute best artwork, and it's pretty straightforward. It's not as jokey. Again, Munchkin Cthulhu, it's Cow Thulu, which is funny, it's cute, but, you know, sometimes it gets a little too out of hand for me. So I like the straightforwardness of this. I'm a huge Marvel fan, so I love everything that's in here. And I just realized that there are no mutants. I'm not going to get into my theories on why, but when I was talking about the affiliations, and I said the Avengers, Spider Friends, and then Inhumans, I realized there's no X-Men, and there are no X-Men characters or villains in here. Maybe they're just going to do a straight up all X-Men version. I don't know, but beautiful, beautiful artwork and great characters. You got Baron Zemo. You got MODOK in here. I love MODOK. Bullseye is, well, I guess I don't know, did they change him in the comic to make him more like the movie version? I'm not a huge fan of that particular look, but I mean, they've got Kraven the Hunter in here. You don't hear too much about that guy anymore. The Vulture, Ultron, of course. I loves me some Taskmaster. Some great villains in here. The items seem to work really well, and of course, you know, if you have the web shooters, you get a bonus if your affiliation is with the Spider Friends. So that's cool. I mean, they go so far. They have Namor's ankle wings in here as footgear. That's pretty wild. You can have Thor as an ally. He's pretty tough. Goblin Glider, She-Hulk as an ally. She gives you a +2 bonus and an extra +2 for males. I like this one. I had this the first time we played. It's a utility belt. There's no bonus, but you may have any number of cards in your hand. So that charity at the end, you don't have to do that. If you have 10 cards in your hand, you can keep all 10 cards in your hand. You don't have to get rid of any of them. Spidey sense. Cancel any trap. I used this in the second game we played, and it saved my bacon, as they say. Iron Man's Repulsar. And that's classic Iron Man armor right there, my favorite version. Mjolnir, the Mind Gem, all sorts. I like the Iron Man's Model 1 armor. Good stuff. Where's the... oh, I like this one. It didn't help me. It's Mandarin's Rings. It's a +2 bonus. And then An extra +1 for each ring you are wearing on your fingers to a maximum of 10. One of the people playing had 3 rings on. So that's a +5 bonus right there. If you're wearing any rings. Didn't do me any good. I'm looking for a particular card here. I didn't stack the entire deck. Where is it? Where is it? I like Ant-Man as an ally. First of all, as always, great artwork, and it's very thematic. So he's a +1 bonus straight up off the bat, and then it says an extra +2 against monsters level 4 or below, and level 16 or higher. Basically to show that he can shrink down and be Ant-Man, or he can grow and be Giant Man. Life Model Decoy is a great card, very powerful. Create an exact duplicate to fight beside you. Double your current combat value. Usable only if you were the only player in combat. And I knew there was something else I wanted to mention, and I'll get to that in a second. But oh, here it is. The Power Gem. You may have any number of powers regardless of rank. Once per combat, you may discard a power for a +5 bonus. So if you recall, I mentioned the powers and how you could only have as many where their ranks are equal to or less than your level. Well, with the Power Gem, you can be level 1 and have 6 powers in front of you. So that's a very strong card. Something I forgot to mention about gameplay. I mentioned messing with other people. Well, you can also ask for help. So I've kicked open the door, and Loki pops out. He's a level 20 monster. I'm at level 2. I don't have many items. I'm not going to beat this guy. I can ask for help. I can ask one player at a time, and only one player can help you. But usually you have to bribe them. So my nephew, huge Spider-Man fan, so I might say, hey, Nate, if you help me defeat Loki, I'll give you my Spider-Man ally, or my Spider-Man suit, or whatever I happen to have. He may or may not agree to that. Or I think Loki gives you like 4 treasures. You can say, all right, if you help me defeat Loki, I will give you the first 2 treasure cards off the treasure stack, or loot stack, whatever you want to call it. So you can get people to help you. And so if you defeat the monster or monsters, you gain the levels. They get whatever you bribed them with. And again, if it's treasures, normally when you get a treasure, you take them face down. No one else is going to see what you got. If someone helps you in combat, and again, Nate agrees he's going to take the first 2 treasures off the deck, then and it was 4 treasures, so I put all 4 down face up so everybody can see what they are. He grabs the first 2. So you've got that going on. And sometimes people will help you. I was in huge trouble at one point, and I ended up having to give Nate 7 treasures. I would have lost a lot if I had not been able to beat the 2 monsters that I was facing, because somebody played a wandering monster card on me and threw an extra monster in there. But yeah, I would have lost levels and cards, and I might have even died. I think maybe there was a death on there. So I gave up all 7 treasures to get somebody to help me, but I got to go up 3 levels because I defeated the 2 monsters, and one of them was worth 2 levels. So I really like this version of Munchkin. Munchkin has not been a game in heavy rotation. I mean, I have so many games, and we do have some that we just play constantly, and then we throw in some of our other favorites every once in a while. I think this version of Munchkin is going to get a lot of play. We had a really good time playing it. It's it's pretty easy to learn. Um, my nephew's girlfriend said the first game went pretty quickly, and she actually won because I made the mistake of helping her at a sort of critical. I didn't realize it was a critical point, but it turned out to be kind of a turning point, and she just ran away with the game after that. We launched right into our second game, and she said, now that I know what I'm doing, I really like this game. And even though my nephew got his ass kicked in that first game, he never got above level 1. Because he kept every time he kicked open the door, it was a trap. I don't think he ever faced a monster. Um, so he was not happy with that first game, but the second game was a lot closer, and everybody had a good time. And this really, if you like Munchkin in general, I think you're going to have fun with this version. If you think Munchkin is okay, kind of like I did, this could be the version that turns you around, especially if you're a Marvel fan. And if you've never played Munchkin before, but it's caught your eye, it hasn't had the right theme. And if you're a Marvel fan, this is the way to go. Even if you've never heard of Munchkin before, if you're a Marvel fan and you like games, give this a try. It's a lot of fun. Beautiful artwork. Be careful. I tend to lose my head when I'm playing games like this, and it doesn't matter if it's going to be advantageous to me or not. I'll do what I can to get, say, the Taskmaster cards. Like I said, I love Taskmaster. I want those cards. Although, one of the things you can do in this game is you can trade an item on your turn. You can trade an item. Actually, I think it says at any time. You can trade an item with another player. Um, but only items. You can't trade allies or powers. And I think the only two Taskmaster cards are the villain card, the monster card, and the power card. So if someone else has them, I'm not going to get them no matter what. Or the power one, the monster you're going to want to defeat. But my nephew, he'll do whatever it takes to get those Spider-Man cards because he's a huge Spider-Man fan. Again, whether or not it's actually going to help him, he wants them. And sometimes players will get cards that would help you, and you might give up a little too much to get them. It's tough. But it's fun. It's so much fun. And again, I haven't gone over everything. Another way you can go up a level is if you look here, let's say this item at the bottom there, 200 gold. You can basically sell 1,000 gold worth of items. That's a horrible sentence structure. Sell items worth a total of 1,000 gold to go up a level. You don't get change, so if your items are 1,200, you don't get 200 back. But if you can get up to 2,000, go up 2 levels. So that's just another thing that you can do. All sorts of stuff. I haven't covered everything, although I covered most of it. So that's it. I guess that's what I've got to say about Munchkin Marvel. So much fun. I really enjoy this. And I'm going to open this up because there's already some expansions planned. You can see this inside the box here. In the summer, we've got the Mystic Mayhem coming out. In the fall, it's Cosmic Chaos. I'm definitely going to pick those up. I haven't really purchased any expansions for any of my other games. The only one I've gotten was the Mars Attacks expansion for Munchkin Apocalypse, but I'm definitely going to be picking up expansions, any expansions that come out for this. So I really had a great time playing it. So that's it. I will have links for a couple places you can pick up this game. I'll have those links in the description below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please, if you have any corrections, because as I've said, have not played a lot of Munchkin, so I may have made some mistakes here. So any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Um, Normally I'd say comments are open for spoilers, but it's a game. I don't think there are spoilers here. Um, so please like, share, and subscribe. And that's it. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.